All right, hi. Ooh, they are on. All right, everybody, move close. I wanted to say that for like 15 minutes, but then I thought it wouldn't be as dramatic. So everybody move close, because what we would have liked is to kind of be in a circle kind of format, but we're
With
not.
lounge chairs up
With
here.
lounge chairs, actually. But we're not going to do that today.
Okay, I moved over, Laura.
I'm moving up. So yes, come close, because we're gonna be intimate. So, welcome. Are you guys having fun today? Yes, kind of.
Great subject, I know.
Well, every time someone has come, I have a booth downstairs, and every time someone has come by, I've said, so what brings you here today? And they look at me like, really? Are you asking that question? But there's so many experts, and I don't want to presume that everyone who's walking in is getting divorced, because there are some experts that are walking around here that aren't divorced or whatever, so, and presuming is, what? Yeah, right. The experts, and the experts of the experts.
I have to go closer?
You need to come closer.
I moved away.
That wasn't a good beginning to move away. That doesn't bode well for our subject matter. Anyway, this is going to be informal, and we're going to introduce ourselves. And thank you for coming. And I think our hope is that we can share with you. That's what this is really about, and that you will feel comfortable and safe enough in this environment to ask questions that you might have. We'll share as openly and honestly. We do have no answers. If you thought you were coming for some answers, I have none. We have none. But we do have an experience that we don't think is unique to us. Ours is unique, but it's the overall umbrella is that it's not all that unique. So I'm Laura Campbell, and this is my mother, Martha, who can speak for herself. But And will. I have a business called the D-Spot, and I work with women as a coach/consultant, primarily with women I'm moving through, during, forward, after divorce. I myself am divorced, and my business was born out of my own experience, trying to be that kind of support that I wish I would have had. So, and this, what I found out during my divorce was that I was not just going through my own divorce with my husband at the time, but that every relationship in my life was also simultaneously changing. And I have always had a very close relationship with my mother and my parents. And the period of time when I was divorcing was the worst time in our relationship. I don't have sisters, but I know that that can be a difficult time for sister love and best friends and all of those other intimate relationships, all the people that love you, truly do, that love us. So we're going to share a little bit about that.
I'm Martha, Laura's mother, and does this sound very loud? It's okay? Okay. My story starts in terms of this is the fact that I was Laura's mother. I am. And we were very close, and I'm in a marriage of 47 years. And it's a good marriage. It started out, it got better. And it's as good as I could imagine it now.
What you want to hear, of course, what you want to be around when your world is falling apart. It's helpful.
That's true, and it's hard. I'll start just by, I wanted to just tell you, when Laura was about 8, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law got a divorce. And we told Laura, and I sat with her and I told her, and Laura said to me, "How could they do this to me?" And that's the ripple effect. She was 8, and what she saw was this was happening, and look what it was doing to her and her image and the family and what was going to happen with the family. Along the way, and I saw Laura's divorce coming. I had seen it But as long as she hadn't mentioned it, I figured, hey, it wouldn't work for me, but maybe it's working for her. You know, my marriage is my marriage, her marriage is her marriage. But of course, that wasn't true. And we started struggling. The struggle was really, and we had been very close. And we began when Laura was very young, we used to have a book. It was called the Martha Laura book. And I would write things to her, things that were easier for me to write than perhaps to say. And she would respond back, and then it would sit dormant. And years later, we'd pull out the Martha Laura book, and we'd write things, and it would go back, and it would go forth. And it was part of the kind of relationship we had. As Laura began to move forward with her divorce, during that time, she said to me, you know, this is my divorce. You don't know what it's like. It's my divorce. And I actually, at that time, for periods of time, I thought it was my divorce also. I just, you know, it was my kid. She was going through a divorce. I was going through a divorce. It was as bad as anything I could imagine. I was devastated. And walking over here this morning, I thought to myself, I wonder what I thought first. Did I think, oh my God, what's going to happen to Laura? Or did I think, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? Because my husband and I were beginning to enter that period of our lives where we were planning to focus everything on us. You know, Laura was married, my son Paul was married, they seemed good, everybody seemed in their place, and it was, you know, our turn. With the announcement that she was getting a divorce, I felt panic. I actually felt panic, and it took me, I'd say, a couple of years to work through that.
And what happened was, and first of all, while we're here sitting before you, by the way, as a mother and a daughter, knowing that we had an excellent relationship beforehand, we know that that's not the case. You all have unique relationships with your parents. They may be divorced, they may not be divorced. You may have good relationships, and by the way, this isn't just about mothers and daughters or parents and children. It could be about your sisters or your best friends or your brothers or whoever in your life are also affected, because shock of all shocks, I learned it wasn't all about me. I liked to hold on to it very dearly as mine, but it did affect others around me. And what happened through my business is, as I developed the D Spot and I began, I began to write a newsletter. And I had this weekly newsletter that I would send out to people who subscribe. I still have it. I don't do it weekly, but I still have my newsletter. And we had gone on a family vacation. My parents, one of the things that they were able to do for me that I no longer could do on my own was vacationing in the way that I used to vacation when I was married. So my parents took I have 2 children, 2 boys, took my boys and I on vacation. So the 5 of us gather together. When we're happy, we're going to Club Med. And I'm like, oh my God, thank God. So we arrive, and there's all these families, right? It's like one of these places where multi-generations of family reunions, like huge. We're like 5 of us, and there's like 35 people over there in the, you know, Jones family, like millions of them. And there were all these families. And so what happened was we'd find ourselves by the pool, and my kids would be off with all the kids, right? They'd find all the kids. Us, who were mostly divorced, middle-agers, we were all at the bar, starting from 10 a.m. And we were all kind of talking, you know, about how, you know, thank God the kids are occupied. And we were all looking over at the pool side where our parents were all, you know, all sitting over there, and they were thinking, you know, they're trying to set us up. They're like over there going, oh my God, my son, and oh my God. And after our vacation, my mother and I started talking about that was really fascinating. And
the parents, grandparents of those young men and women who were getting a divorce or were divorced began to talk to each other and realized we had nobody to talk to. There was nothing out there for us. I'm a person who goes right to the library. Anything happens at all, I want to research it. What's been written, what do they say, what's the best way? And there was nothing written for the impact of divorce, the ripple effect on lives of parents, children, siblings, best friends, and colleagues. And I couldn't believe what was happening. And as Laura and I talked about it, I realized that there was an effect that, well, what happened actually was Laura asked me to write a column for her blog, newsletter, her newsletter.
It wasn't a blog yet.
Okay.
I didn't know what a blog was.
I don't know what a blog is now.
Okay.
And so I did, and it was notes from the mother of a divorced woman. And I started to write down how I couldn't talk, how everything I said was the wrong thing, how one day I was wonderful, the next day she hated me, how I was afraid. Everything I was feeling, I'd start to write, and people would start to respond. You know,
But she'd send them to me. What she's not telling.
right.
What she's not telling.
That's
you
right. That's right.
Is that I'd say to her, just send them to me on whatever day of the week. Just send it to me. You have a deadline. So she had a deadline. She sent them to me, and I'd get them and cut and paste them in. But the problem was I'd never seen them. I was reading it for the first time, and I was overwhelmed. These are things she hadn't shared with me, and there are things I hadn't considered. And so 95% of the time I found myself crying, like picking up the phone, Mom, I didn't know you felt this way. I'm really sorry. All this like incredible, I was learning, I was seeing what I was going through with a completely new set of eyes. And I was learning about myself too. As Stephanie said, if any of you were in the session before this, and I loved it. I'm gonna steal it from her. Don't tell. But she said, judgment when we go through divorce and there's all this judgment out there. Sometimes take that judgment and how you feel, the things you feel, and I'm pretty much quoting her, but she said it better. We take the things that you react to the most, that you get the most defensive to, that are the things that hit you at your core, and learn from them, because those help you see yourself and learn the most. And that's what happened. I was taking what she was writing, and I was really learning about myself and about this process in a completely different way. So it was an evolution. It was really, she did this for about a year.
And it was a long evolution. And during it, I felt like I'd lost my daughter. I just felt that the person there, and of course Laura was struggling with everything that she was struggling through, going through divorce, having 2 young children, working out all the financial and legal and all of the details, and then buying a new house, and all of these things were going on. And part of her needed us, and part of her resented needing us, so she resented us. And during that time, I just had no idea where I was, and I began to hold back. I was afraid. Everything was so tentative. And again, as we started to write, it began to work out. Now, Laura had a disclaimer, and my disclaimer would be that we're not necessarily a model at all. And I am sure there are people whose parents may live on the other side of the country, and for them, that kind of relationship isn't a possibility. Or if it is, they're not sure how to negotiate it. And there are some who have never had a good relationship and may never. But as I said before, this also relates to other people who love you in your life. As you're changing, those relationships are changing. And people don't necessarily know what to do, how to do it, what's the best way to do it, how to ask you. One of the things is, I would write on one of them, sometimes I just had to listen. I was a fixer. Tell me your problem and I'll give you 22 possible solutions. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Most of the time, Laura just wanted to talk. She didn't want a solution person at the other end. It took me a long time to figure that out. The other thing that I had to try to figure out, and this was much more difficult, was that there were parallels in Laura's life that paralleled certain periods of time in my own, and I didn't understand that. And many times I was responding to things in Laura that had nothing to do with Laura, but everything to do with where I was. And of course, Laura didn't understand that. Like, I didn't understand where she was. She didn't understand where I was. And it moved on thusly. What?
I was going to say, one of the things about divorce, and I haven't heard everyone speak today, but it may come up, is that they're triggers for other people. You know, when you share your divorce with your best friend or your sister or anyone else that's married, it triggers their own stuff. Because really, truthfully, none of us knows what goes on behind the closed door of another person's home and relationship or anything. And the truth is, it triggers. And so there's all this stuff that comes up for them, and your own stuff's going up for you, and everybody's determined to say, this is all about me. And so communication becomes extremely difficult and emotionally charged, and that is what happened. It's what happened for us.
For a number of years.
Yeah.
And Laura kept saying to me, it's going to be all right, it's going to be all right, we're going to work through this and we're going to come out in a better place. And the truth was, I did not believe her. And the reason I didn't was because I still was thinking of my little girl. I was not, I mean, this was a real crossing point of us having to develop a relationship as a woman to a woman. Not just a mother to a daughter, but as Laura was finding her own self and her own voice after many years in marriage, I had to respond to that. And the truth is, I went into therapy to try to figure it out because I was so devastated. I cried all the time. I cried in the car. I do water exercise. I cried in the water. I cried on walks. I was just crying all the time, and I knew that that was not healthy. Something was really wrong, and I couldn't figure it out myself. The other part of this was my recognition as we went along was that I needed to talk to other parents of people who were getting a divorce. I just want to throw in something that's a total non sequitur, because Stephanie referred to herself as middle-aged at 45. Right?
I'm exactly her age.
Yeah,
I'm middle-aged.
but I think I am too. I think I'm also middle-aged. So there were and believe me, all of these things were swirling around in all of this, recognizing that it is not the same relationship mother-daughter. I don't have the answers. I didn't have the answers. I didn't have the questions, never mind the answers. And recognizing that how many people are out there in my position who run to libraries and try to find out where things have changed, and the recognition and Laura's understanding that it wasn't all about her. Look, we changed our ways of taking vacations. All the kids' holidays went on my calendar as well as Laura's. All of the vacations went on my I was finished with this. It changed our financial planning. I mean, we knew that there were different realities in our life now. And Laura never thought about any of that.
No, but I'll tell you, and here's the thing, and this happened to me with my parents, and it happened with friends, and I don't have a sister, I have one sibling, and this didn't happen with him. And when you hear it, you'll know why. But I resented my parents. I resented their 47-year-old marriage and the fact that they represented fully what I thought I'd always have and didn't and wasn't going to. And I loved them, but I was aggravated, And it happened with friends as well. Not because I am not thrilled for the joy and happiness anyone else would feel, but really, it was supposed to be my joy and happiness. And the truth is, I didn't, and I recently wrote about this, really, none of us really walked down the aisle thinking or hoping that we would be divorced one day. I mean, so say whatever you want from whatever position you come from, but the truth is, that was very hard in the dynamic I had with my parents. I've watched it before in my own practice with siblings, where, one person's life is falling apart and all the siblings are doing so well and happy and everything is perfect. And we needed to acknowledge that also. I was also ashamed for having to need them to help me parentally. Because I had the fortune, which there were many moments I didn't think it was so fortunate, that they lived so close. They helped me, they often helped me with my kids. And so I wanted their help, and yet I was embarrassed, and I felt, I don't know what the word is. I felt like I wasn't an adult. I could not.
Diminished.
I felt diminished. And all of these things were not said out in the open for a long time, but they were felt. And so those triggered some pretty horrendous. We seem happy, don't we? Yeah, there were some pretty ugly moments. And it wasn't until we could be able to begin to articulate that some of these things were going on, and it was hard. A lot of tears, a lot of tears.
I used to say that I felt like a push me, pull you. One day I'm up pushed here, next day I'm pulled here, next day pushed here. And then I wrote something recently, because one of the things that this has resulted in, or is resulting in, is that Laura and I are in the process of writing a book. And we're in the process of writing a book in two voices, her voice and my voice. And in relationship to this ripple effect on how it goes. And I said, at some times I felt guilty. My marriage, in some ways, I know that she wanted in her life what the pattern that she'd seen, and I felt guilty about it. And I didn't want to change my life. I didn't feel that guilty. But it was painful. It was very painful from a way I'd never dreamed it would be painful.
And it does trigger, again, I think we have to go back to, we talked about this in the car yesterday when we drove in, is that our relationship was unique before the divorce. And that there are, I know how many, there may be many of you in the room whose parents are divorced. And of course, so when you tell your parents, when adults tell their parents who are not married that they're getting divorced, and some of them may still be harboring their own stuff around their own divorce, it gets like layers of complication. And so, we've explored, is it, no matter which way you slice or dice it, you're going to be telling these people in your world, and again, they're all going to come at it from their own place and their own emotional health. And it's important, and we do this, it's important to set boundaries. Boundaries become really important.
Yeah, and the other part, there's several other parts. Of course, humor is really important. And we do have, fortunately, a sense of humor. But the other part is, when you're so close, it's easy to push the envelope further than it needs to be pushed, or it should be pushed. And anger and pain can come out in a very destructive way. And Laura reminded me of this, because we chatted all the way in, since I didn't particularly write or prepare in that sense. But we talked about, a couple of weeks ago, we got into a terrible argument. Now, to tell you the truth, I haven't got a clue what it was about.
It actually was about, it was about my son, that teenager.
Okay, it was
So
about.
need I say more?
And I don't think we actually slammed down the phone, but it was close enough to say, I have to get off the phone now, goodbye. So it wasn't quite slamming down. And when you do that, it's really hard to get out of there, that you start to back yourselves in. So I texted Laura, and I said, how should we resolve this? Should we text or talk? So Laura said to me yesterday in the car, what did you say, throwing a rope down the hole?
No.
Okay.
It was close though.
Okay.
I said, you know, what's important is to make sure that there's always a ladder that gets thrown into the hole, that there's always an opportunity for the people in your life to climb out and reach you, or vice versa. You can't pull up the ladder and leave no option for reconnecting. You know, I said to my mother the night before, I was excited about Start Over Smart, and I was, you know, so I went to sleep and I said to her, and I had, this is what came to me, this is what I was thinking about. I was thinking about the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk. Remember the Hulk? She's like, okay, not sure where you're going with that. But the truth is, the Hulk, right, what happened? There was this guy, and he would get pushed, right? Something would make him really upset, really angry. And he'd get so angry and fiery, and then his eyeballs would whack out, and then all of a sudden he would, you know, roar and turn into this big green hulking thing, this ugly, horrible beast, and then he'd run. Right? He'd run and run, and you don't know where the Hulk went. He went somewhere until he could calm down and return to a normal person. And I said that when I thought about sometimes some of these things, that's how I felt. I felt like, here I am, I have the D-spot, I'm a coach, I'm like all these great, you know, super evolved woman, and then I turn into this freaking Hulk. Like, I literally watched it on the phone. I was like, oh! And I could see, I was literally in front of my very own eyes, turning into the Hulk, and you know, and my mother was like, I think I have to get off the phone now, okay? And I was like, you bitch, and you know, and
she didn't say that.
I didn't.
I don't think
You're being
so.
nice.
Maybe.
And that was it, and you know, and waited, and then got my text. I wasn't exactly 100% ready yet to talk, but my mother loves me, like my best friends love me, and those people that love us, we have to throw the ladder in. We have to keep a ladder there, so that she threw me a ladder, and it was imperative that I started to climb the ladder and didn't hold on to the fact that I was the Hulk. I came back to normal life and normal size and charming self, and that's become really, really important when we go through these things, because they do happen. It's not like we live some happy horseshit life where it's all smiles and giggles and butterflies. We are living a real life with real stuff, and it happens, and it happens with all of the people in your world that love you, that want to say what they think you want to hear, and usually it's not when you're ready to hear it.
And you may have to wait. Sometimes you have to wait. It'll happen when the timing is right. When I was in therapy, there were two terrific things that I would share, also maybe out of nowhere. One of them is my favorite, which is, you don't have to attend every argument to which you are invited. And I have loved that.
The greatest line ever.
You do not have to attend every argument to which you're invited. I love that one. And the other one is that you can't change somebody else. You can change yourself, and you can change how you're reacting, you can change how you're thinking and what you're doing. And in so doing, whoever you're interacting with will also change. Their change will be because you have changed, not because you can impose change on them. And those two things, I think, are really important. And the other really important thing is that we said we were going to leave time
for question. I was just going to say, I'd much rather leave more time for you guys to, we'll tell you anything openly and honestly.
Right.
Like, really.
This was really helpful. Thank you for sharing your story. It was really helpful. Thanks for sharing your story. Do you have any advice that I could pass on to clients who have shared with me that while they're going through the process, they start to feel shut out by the friends that they had, couples friends, where all of a sudden Friday, Saturday night come up, their couples friends are no longer calling them, And then I think you'd mentioned that ladder. I've tried to advise them to say, hey, give a handle. There's a Stanford University study, and they call it handles. Provide an opportunity, but I feel like I've had a difficult time because, I come from a different place in the relationship, the professional advisor. Any help there that I could pass on?
Okay, two different things, but as far as the feeling shut out, one of the things, again, is those relationships all change, and there's a lot of loss, and loss of friendships and evolution of friendships is something that happens. And, is there advice for someone who feels shut out by friends? It's a time to sit back and reflect on those friendships and to look at them. And when I work with clients and when I speak, it's time to really get clear on what you, the individual, what we need and want from a friendship, and not get hung up on, well, I was always included in going out on Saturday nights, and now I don't get called. Well, it may not be the right fit anymore, and that's okay, but what do you need from that person? Do you need something from the couple? Do you need something from the woman? What do you need out of that friendship, and how can you then articulate it? One of the things that is really important is to begin to learn how to articulate and ask for what you need. A lot of us sit back and wait. I'm going to wait and see who invites me, and then I'm going to assess everyone on whether they invited me or not. And it's a lonely game to sit back and wait for everybody to invite you. Those relationships are also transitioning into something different. It is not going to look the same. My relationship with my parents is not the same as it was before my divorce, nor is it with my family or my friends. Different relationships. And because of that, I have a lot of new people in my life as well. So it's just a transition, and it takes time. And we were talking about our shoes today,
Yes,
how my mother and I have completely, really?
Don't you love that?
Can you imagine that we come from the same, the genetic gene pool? But the truth of the matter is you have to, and we were figuring, how could we bring that out without just being random? But the truth is, you have to walk in another's shoes. You have to try to walk in another's shoes. Put your head into where another person may be. And that's important with friendships. And I love the handle thing. I like that. I don't know if there was more.
Yeah, the follow-up to that, I heard you, when you were talking, you use a lot of past tense. Was there an aha moment where your relationship changed, or is it an evolution, an organic thing you're still working on?
I think the aha moment for me was when I realized how much of my fears for Laura, and I had a number of fears. I'll give you one that is certainly sharing, but I don't know any of you. So not such a big share. But I had alcoholism in my family. And I will tell you that when I saw Laura take so much as a glass of wine, my body would go like this. I was scared. The time when change became possible for me was when I began to face my
Don't touch
my fears. I think when you're talking about friendships, and Stephanie did articulate this, that people whose marriages are maybe not exactly on the track that as an outsider you might think would be terrific, when someone near to them goes through divorce, it begins to impact on the foundation of what they have. And they wonder, and they worry, and they think, and I think that's a part of what goes. It's all part of how one thing
Divorce is
affects something
contagious.
else.
You didn't know that? Nobody shared that part with you? That was a joke, yeah.
Yeah, I know you said it jokingly, but I've seen it.
You've seen it happen, and people are afraid of it happening. It's a legitimate fear thing that happens.
Yes. Wait.
I think that she's.
Oh, okay.
We've got somebody doing that.
Oh, we have somebody doing that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you don't have to.
Control. Go on.
Really? Are you noticing? Are you taking notice?
The mic, I'll play for him. But I'm speaking personally, even though I'm a family lawyer, but for a long time. But personally, I feel like the sandwich generation because I'm a child. Use the mic, really? Okay. Oh, that's the first time anyone ever said that to me. Okay.
Nice.
I feel that I'm like the sandwich generation. I was a child of divorce, and now my child has been through divorce. Okay, so I have it like on both ends, and I feel it affects my life every single day. And I think I came here because of the mom-daughter thing. I think, though, what it shows here with you two is that there was this commitment. No matter what the hell was, you were committed to each other. And the fact that your mom, that you went for therapy, like, you know, shows a lot. And it makes me see, like, how, I mean, you know, I just didn't have that. And I think what the divorce did is it almost re-emphasized the distance with the parents or a lack of trust issues. I mean, even to the point where, like, my mom was talking to my ex as we were going through it, you know. So, and not in a malicious way. She just didn't, she was nervous. She just didn't
Yeah.
know what to do.
Yeah.
That's a very hard thing. That's a
Yeah.
very hard thing. I can say that it was painful for me to lose my son-in-law. I mean, he was my son-in-law. He'd been my son-in-law for 11 years. Unfortunately, that really did become a lost relationship, and there's nothing I could, some things you can't do anything about.
I mean, we were in the middle of discussing, you know, access issues, and she's like, you know, almost like talking with him about the things with me to be careful. I mean, it was like strange stuff.
Strange
So,
things happen.
Yeah,
I've seen
strange
a lot of
things happen.
strange
So
things.
that's what I just want to put is
Thank
that
you.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But with the friends, I think you're right in terms of reinvention is that what I did was because I left the old neighborhood, they were all couples, they were all like, oh, you know, Sherry's leaving the Victorian house. Yeah, Sherry's leaving the Victorian house. It's okay. But I developed like this group called Power Girls of all interesting women, you know, a lot of them been divorced, and I made completely new friends. So I think, you know, it's good to tell the clients that this is an opportunity. I know they don't feel it. They feel like death is at the door.
Here's the one thing I say about any relationship, and this really transcends your love, intimate partnership, friends, family. For them to be successful, and it takes a commitment from both people. One person cannot make it happen. There's no way that can happen. There has to be a commitment by both parties to be in it, fully in it, and do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Heather. You guys are doing terrific. I just want to say I purposely wanted to come here because I was having some family issues as well. I'm ending a 25-year marriage, and it isn't easy, of course. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Laura, was, do you find that there's jealousy among your friends? Like, you know, divorce is hard, and there are rough patches. But if you're even remotely positive, it seems that some people glom onto it and they're happy for you, and then you're cheerleader, and then other people are like, well, you can't be that happy. You know, it's like, well, you know, nothing is perfect, and you're not going to be perfect. Like, I have my sister-in-law who's my husband's baby brother's wife. She and I are very close, and she's made some comments like that, and I'm like, hey, I thought you were on my side. You know, she's my only friend on that side of the family, and I thought she'd be more positive and supportive, but I get tinges of jealousy, and I was wondering if you experienced that as well.
Jealousy, meaning jealousy of you now going out and,
And making a move.
oh yeah,
And
you
making
know what?
a move. Being bold enough to make a stand, even though their marriages are horrible and they're scared to make a stand.
Yep.
But now you're making a
Well,
stand.
now did you not just answer your own question?
did.
Okay.
Yes, I
So when you finally, listen, and I'm a believer, divorce, you don't wake up one morning and go, today's the day. I'm ending my marriage. It doesn't happen like that overnight. It's a long time in coming. It's a tremendously painful thing. It takes a tremendous amount of courage. And yes, and you know, and we all know, we don't even have to have the conversation. There are many, many people living very unhappy married lives. That's the way it is. They're in unhappy relationships. So are they going to be jealous? Quite possibly. There's no question about it, because a lot of people don't believe that happiness is possible. I mean, it's just an epidemic of people who don't believe that happiness is possible and extraordinary love is possible. And they're both possible. It isn't easy, but it's possible. So yes, but again, now that you know it and you've articulated it so perfectly, recognize that she's got pain, and her whatever stuff she's handing you is because she's trying to figure out what the hell she's going to do with her own situation, and she's watching you and learning from you and seeing what's going to happen, and are you really going to be happy, or is your life going to be devastated for the rest of eternity? So there's a lot going on there. It's complicated.
Their lives are very different too, and I think that's part of the problem. My children are grown, and she has like stair steps, so she feels stuck. Whereas I'm
That's right.
oh, I'm going out to dinner.
Yeah.
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 Next week is a play, and so maybe I'm like buying into, maybe I'm like feeding the flame as well.
But it's your new life. It's your life. It's your life, and hopefully you can slip her a note one day and just say, if you ever want to talk, you know my number.
I just had a question about, do you have any advice on how to tell our friends and family that this is happening? Because it's very new to me, and I've spoken to my 2 brothers and my therapist, and that's it. But the news.
The telling.
Get out.
The telling.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
the telling. Yeah, the telling's complicated. There's different levels of people in your life. So I believe you have to design how you're going to share that news with different people. For example, I'll give you an example. I had small kids at the time because it was a while ago. Before I told my kids, I told their best friend's parents. And the reason that I did that was not out of disrespect for my children first, but I wanted my children to feel empowered to tell whoever they wanted. I didn't want to say, you can't tell your best friends. I felt they needed to be fully empowered. And I had a funny feeling that they were going to run to their best friends and be like, hey, mommy and daddy are getting divorced. And then they'd tell, of course, their parents, and then I was going to get the phone call, or they'd start asking around, oh my God, I think Laura and Ken are going to get divorced. And then it was going to be this like wildfire thing. So I sat down, and you should sit down with your circles of friends, the people in your life, and there's nothing, as far as I'm concerned, there's no area of life that is better suited for honesty. And you tell as little or as much as you'd like. I'd suggest as little. Marriage is sacred, so is divorce. It is not something for Facebook. It is not something for, it's not a means of dumping shit about your ex or anything else. What happened in your marriage was sacred, and I believe what happens in divorce is sacred. And I know you want to share it. Call someone like me, call a therapist, call whoever you want, and say whatever you want. But you know what? It's yours, and it's not for public consumption, in my opinion. It's my humble opinion. That wasn't meant to shut everybody up. Like, we can talk here. I know I'm not. We're all amongst friends here, but it's a scary thing today. I think we have to be careful. But gingerly and gently, you can tell your friends. It's scary. It hurts.
It does, and it's starting to get on the rumor mill. I've heard, that people are, so one couple called the friends that we confided in and said, what's up? And they're like, how do you know that?
Here's the thing about the rumor mill.
Yeah.
The greatest thing is it's like wildfire. If you don't say anything, it goes by.
It's like
and
that Norman
gone.
thing where the telephone, you remember?
But
So-
trust me, there'll be another divorce in a month. It's just the way it is. Like, let it go, let it get out there, let everybody say what they need, and trust me, it's going to be somebody else's moment in a month.
Well, that's what we're finding is that we've been married 27 years and none of our friends are divorced.
That's remarkable, actually.
We're the first to be on this particular rumor mill, so I don't know quite how to handle that.
Here was my tagline. Doesn't work for everybody, but I used to say, because they want to know. There's a voyeurism. We talk about the voyeurism. Everybody wants to know, like, what went down,
What
who
really is
slept
the
with who, what happened, and I used to just say, thank you so much. I thank you so much for asking. We are just really moving forward and hoping that we can, really protect our children at best, the best way that we possibly can. But thank you so much for asking, which is so frustrating for people because they want to hear what an ass he is and what he did and what he, it's really frustrating. But so they move on quickly to something that's more interesting. It's the reality.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
and
for caring.
ask us online anything. We're happy
Right.
to share. Thank you. Oh, you know what? We brought handouts of just tips that we thought were helpful
Oh,
in
right.
having difficult conversations from our limited expertise.